So in the last clip we were talking about narrative voice, and we looked at the first and third person with a brief detour into something that I call the second person, which is of course not the literary second person, but an amalgam of different states or different narrative voices that I call, for my own purposes, the second person. This clip intends to look at some variations on that, not the standard or not the approach that I might personally take, but variations of voice. I mentioned yesterday that the second person is the natural state of the novice gamer, or the gamer who has not chosen to apply any kind of stylistic choice to the way in which players interact with each other around the table. So this is basically the normal state of gaming, where different people at their different stages of evolution as a gamer communicate in different ways. So some people might be completely inconsistent, sometimes saying, I do this, sometimes saying, my character does this, sometimes saying, he, in reference to a male character, does this. Whereas other people at the table might very consistently be saying, I do this, I do that, and some might be saying, he does this, he does that. And, well, the real strength of the second person is that if the game master is aware of this and is not trying to force any particular agenda on anybody, they can simply respond in kind. I say, I do this, and he responds or she responds with, okay, you encounter this. And the next player says, she does this, and the game master responds with, well, she discovers. And the last person at the table says, well, my character, and the game master replies with, okay, well, your character. Right? Seamlessly switching back and forth between the different narrative voices that the players are using. So this lets everybody enjoy the game in their own way. Now, the game master may or may not appreciate that particular role of being the person that not only has to envision and manage everything, but also has to shift between each individual player's preferred voice and manage all the descriptive techniques that come with those different voices. So while that is a great strength, strength also comes with weakness. And so as a game master, as you are evolving in your role of game master, there may be certain techniques that you want to try, or there might be certain approaches that you want to try, and you find that you're just not, you don't have all the mental or, preparatory resources at your disposal to handle all of the demands on your moment-to-moment time during a game. And one of the reasons for this might be having to manage all these different approaches to communication around the table. So you could then try and guide your players to one voice. I'm not a big fan of one member of a group enforcing an agenda. What I like is for people to communicate with each other. So as the game master coming forward, or as any of the players around the group coming forward and saying, I think it would be interesting to try this. Like, it'd be interesting to try a narrative game, or it'd be interesting to try a diceless game, or it'd be interesting to try playing in the third person. It'd be interesting to try going for a deeper degree of immersion, or whatever it is. Coming forward, putting this on the table, and letting the group decide, I think is healthy and good for skill development. So, one of the situations where this might happen is if you have a group that's communicating in a variety of different ways, and you try and guide them, or the group decides to guide itself, into one consistent approach. But what approach? Well, we talked about the first person yesterday, and Null Inquisitor has a great video about why he prefers the first person, and Same Old G has talked about how description can influence and affect your reaction both as a player and a character. So you have a variety of choices to choose from. And ones that we didn't talk about in the previous clip, Sean Driscoll brought up in his clip. What about the mixed state? If you can't really decide one way or the other what you want to go for, like the more personally immersive first person, or the more, I guess, visually immersive or cooperatively immersive third person, why not try mixing them? Why not try having the third person be for the bulk of the description that's going on, and first person being for dialogue and interaction? That's a great way to go about things. You know, he gets out of the car, stares the woman in the eye, and says, "I think you need to tell me the truth." I think that'd be all right. That would be a pretty interesting way to play, and requiring a little bit more finesse than just going with whatever happens. And it's always nice to develop more finesse. But whatever you decide, going for first or third or a blend of first and third, somehow the group needs to start moving toward that goal. So how would you guide a group from whatever state they're in into conducting everything in the narrative voice of the first person? Well, one of the really interesting things about language is that people tend to reply to the pattern in which they're addressed. So what I mean by that is, let's say I have a character who keeps, or I have a player who keeps saying, "my character, my character, my character." And we have decided as a group that we don't want to speak that way around the table anymore. We want to communicate in the first person. So it'll be I do this and I do that. So how do we get that person to adopt this mannerism easily and without, without coming down on them, without saying, "Look, you're doing it wrong," and all that stuff that takes all the fun out of things that are supposed to be fun? Well, there's the amazing power of the word you. So the player keeps saying, "My character does this and my character does that," and the game master keeps responding with, "You see this and you hear that and you. And the natural response to you is I or we and so on. It doesn't take very long, actually, before a consistent approach of referring to each player around the table as you will start eliciting the response of I in return. After a while, if anybody's resisting, it has to be because they're consciously resisting, which is something that you should investigate if that were to actually happen. Maybe they're really uncomfortable with the idea of taking on the role of I, and so therefore you should consider gaming in a different voice. The cool part is that it works in all directions. If we have decided that we want everyone around the table to start saying "my character" instead of I or he, then you keep saying as the game master, and as the other players around the table, "What does your character do?" Language is the medium of our hobby, and it's also the method by which you shape it. I like that a great deal.